So you're interested in how Hollywood and the music industry are tackling all these social issues. Well, it's a question with a lot of layers, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, on the one hand, we see all these celebrities speaking out, movies trying to tackle tough topics, musicians really pouring their hearts into songs about real-world struggles.
Right.
But are they true allies?
Yeah.
Or is there something a little more complicated going on? That's what we're diving into today.
Okay.
So we got pasted text here. And this source, I mean, it takes a pretty critical look at this whole trend.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, it does not hold back.
Well, and what's really fascinating is that pasted text just opens with this really stark statement.
Yeah.
It says, and I'm quoting directly here, "We are witnessing the rise of exploitation disguised as advocacy, where the pain of the marginalized is repackaged as a product for profit."
Wow, that is a powerful way to set the stage.
Yeah.
It really makes you question the motivations behind some of these projects.
Absolutely. And the source goes on to argue that this exploitation disguised as advocacy, it's becoming more and more common, actually, both in Hollywood and the music industry.
Yeah.
They point to films about police brutality that are making millions at the box office while, the families of the victims continue to struggle for justice.
Yeah.
Or you've got songs about mental health, topping the charts. But meanwhile, funding for mental health services is still, inadequate, to say the least.
Yeah, it's almost like there's this disconnect between the art and the action. Like raising awareness is important, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But it feels a bit hollow if it's not accompanied by, genuine efforts to address the issue.
Exactly. And pasted text doesn't just call out this lack of action, but they raise a really disturbing point, I think, that sometimes these industries might actually be making the problems worse.
Oh, wow.
By perpetuating harmful stereotypes and narratives.
Yeah. Well, isn't raising awareness still valuable? Even if, there's a profit motive involved? I mean, at least these issues are being talked about, right?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's actually something the source grapples with as well.
Okay.
They acknowledge that bringing these issues into the public eye can be a good thing, but they argue that we need to be very cautious about how these stories are being told.
Okay, yeah.
Because when you sensationalize or oversimplify complex social issues, you risk reinforcing harmful stereotypes and actually hindering progress.
That makes me think about some of the movies I've seen about domestic violence.
And
I've always wondered if they're actually helping to, dismantle harmful narratives, or if they're just repackaging them for entertainment.
Pasted text actually uses a similar example.
Oh, okay.
They argue that some films, while, attempting to shed light on the issue of domestic violence, they end up romanticizing toxic relationships or prioritizing the drama over the very real, painful experiences of survivors. And this can have a really damaging effect because it normalizes those harmful behaviors and makes it harder for victims to come forward and seek help.
So it's not enough to just tell the story, it's about how you tell the story.
Right.
And what impact you're trying to achieve.
Exactly. And pasted text goes even further. They argue that these industries have a responsibility to actually go beyond storytelling and invest in solutions.
Okay.
They say, and again I'm quoting here, "If you're going to profit from the pain of a community, you have a moral obligation to reinvest in that community's healing."
That's a powerful statement.
Yeah.
It really challenges us to think about where the money's going and who's actually benefiting.
Exactly. And it's not just about, writing a check and walking away either.
Right.
The source really emphasizes the importance of authentic representation.
Okay.
Where those with lived experience are actively involved in, sharing the narrative and ensuring that their voices are heard.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's easy to get things wrong when you're telling someone else's story, even with the best intentions, right?
Exactly. And the source gives this really striking example, actually, of a film about a young woman struggling with addiction. The film was praised by critics, for its realistic portrayal.
Right.
But it turned out that, none of the writers or consultants on the project had any personal experience with addiction.
Oh, wow.
And the film ended up perpetuating a lot of harmful stereotypes and misconceptions.
That's a perfect example of what pasted text is talking about, right?
Yeah.
This idea that even when you're trying to do good, you can end up doing harm if you're not careful.
Absolutely. And this brings us to another key point that the source highlights. Accountability.
Okay.
They argue that we need to demand more transparency from studios and labels about how they're actually addressing these issues. Are they donating to relevant charities? Are they working with organizations on the ground? Or are they just, paying lip service to these causes while raking in profits?
It's like what we were talking about earlier with that disconnect between the art and the action, right? It's not enough to just make a movie or a song about a social issue. You have to walk the walk, too.
Right. And Pasted Text provides some specific examples of what that might look like.
Okay.
They talk about the importance of studios and labels, partnering with community organizations, funding research initiatives, creating educational resources.
So it's about using their platforms and their resources to create meaningful change, not just generate buzz.
Exactly. And the source argues that we as consumers have a role to play in this as well. We need to be more discerning about the media we consume and the messages we support.
That's a good point, because it's easy to just get swept up in the hype, but we need to be more critical about what we're watching and listening to.
Think about it this way. Every time we buy a ticket to a movie or stream a song, we're casting a vote. We're telling the industry what kind of stories we value and what kind of impact we want to see.
So it's not just about entertainment, it's about making conscious choices.
Right. And it's not about, boycotting every piece of media that touches on a social issue. It's about being informed and engaged, asking questions, and supporting those who are doing it right.
So how do we know who's doing it right? Because it's not always easy to tell what's genuine and what's just for show, is it?
That's a fair point, and that's why Pasted Text stresses the importance of education and empowerment.
Okay.
They argue that studios and labels have a responsibility to equip audiences with the tools and resources to think critically about these issues and take meaningful action.
So it's not enough to just make us feel something. It's about inspiring us to do something.
Exactly. Instead of leaving us feeling overwhelmed or helpless, they should be pointing us towards concrete steps we can take to get involved. Providing links to organizations, sharing information about how to get involved in local initiatives,
Right.
even offering concrete tips on how to make changes in our own lives. It's about empowering us to be part of the solution.
That makes a lot of sense, but isn't that a lot to ask of the entertainment industry? I mean, their primary goal is to entertain, right?
That's true, but Pasted Text argues that these industries have a unique power to shape culture and influence public opinion. And with that power comes a responsibility to use it wisely.
So it's not just about making movies and music, it's about using their platforms to make a positive impact on the world.
Exactly. And the source points to a few examples of, artists and creators who are doing just that.
Yeah.
They highlight musicians who are donating a portion of their concert proceeds to social justice organizations.
Right.
Filmmakers who are partnering with community groups to tell authentic stories. Actors who are using their platforms to advocate for meaningful change.
So there are people out there who are getting it right.
Yes, and it's important to celebrate and support those who are leading the way. But we also need to hold those who are lagging behind accountable.
So what can we do as individuals? How can we make a difference?
Well, as we were saying earlier, it starts with being conscious consumers. Paying attention to who's creating the content we're consuming, what messages they're promoting, and how they're using their platforms.
And not being afraid to ask questions.
Right. Don't just accept things at face value, do some research, engage in conversations, and use your voice to demand better.
It sounds like it's a collective effort. We all have a role to play in shaping a more responsible and impactful entertainment industry.
Absolutely. And I think Pasted Text provides a really valuable framework for thinking about how we can do that.
So to wrap up, it seems like Hollywood and the music industry have a real opportunity to be a force for good, but it requires moving beyond, surface level engagement and really committing to making a tangible difference.
Yeah, it feels like we're talking about a real shift in mindset.
It is, not just for the creators, but for us as viewers and listeners, too.
Yeah, Pasted Text actually closes with a really provocative question.
Okay.
They ask, are we merely passive consumers of entertainment, or are we active participants in shaping a more just and equitable world?
That's a powerful question to leave us with.
Yeah.
Really challenges us to take responsibility for the media we consume and the impact it has,
It does, and it reminds us that we have a voice. We can demand better from the entertainment industry. We can support those who are using their platforms for good. And we can use our own voices to advocate for the changes we want to see in the world.
So it's about moving beyond awareness and towards action.
Exactly. And Pasted Text offers some really concrete suggestions for how we can do that.
Okay.
They talk about supporting organizations that are working to promote media literacy, advocating for policies that hold the entertainment industry accountable, and using our purchasing power to support creators who are aligned with our values.
So it's about being informed, engaged, and proactive.
Right, and it's about recognizing that entertainment is never just entertainment.
Yeah.
It has the power to, shape our understanding of the world, influence our beliefs, and inspire us to act.
So as we wrap up this deep dive today, it seems like there's a lot to think about when it comes to the role of Hollywood and the music industry in addressing social issues.
Absolutely. It's a complex and nuanced topic.
Yeah.
But I think Pasted Text gives us some valuable tools for navigating it.
They really challenge us to ask those tough questions about motivation, impact, and responsibility. And they remind us that we all have a role to play in creating a more just and equitable media landscape. Knowing what we now know, how can we as consumers hold these industries accountable and advocate for more responsible storytelling? What questions will you ask the next time you see a movie or hear a song that tackles a social issue?
That's the heart of it, isn't it? Don't just be, passively entertained. Be engaged. Be critical. Ask yourself, who benefits from this story? Are the voices of those most affected being authentically represented? And most importantly, what impact is this work having beyond the screen or the speakers? Is it truly contributing to positive change?
Those are powerful questions that can guide us towards a more responsible and impactful relationship with the entertainment industry.
And I think that's the ultimate takeaway here. We have the power to demand better from the media we consume. We can choose to support those who are using their platforms for good, and we can use our own voices to advocate for the changes we want to see in the world.
This has been a really thought-provoking deep dive. Thanks for helping us unpack all of this.
It's been a pleasure.
And to you listening, we hope this deep dive has provided you with some new insights and perspectives on this complex issue. Keep asking questions, keep demanding better, and remember that you have the power to make a difference.